one of the most interesting things about our brain is its ability to recognize patterns, which is actually one of the things that the behaviorists, Pavlov and Skinner did figure out is, if, with the famous Pavlov's dogs experiment, if you ring a bell and then you feed a dog meat paste, then the dog figures out pretty well that the bell and the meat paste are associated, and it starts responding before you ever give it, the secondary stimulus. Okay. We kind of work in the same way. Okay, if you always do something, a particular action, and that action gets you something that you want, you learn that pattern very quickly. And you're far more likely, when you want the result, to do the thing that gets the result.
Absolutely.
It's a very basic, even children at a very early age. There's a wonderful book, not on the reading list, but is well worth reading. It's called The Scientist in the Crib. And it talks about how little kids start experimenting with all sorts of different things to try to figure out the patterns. What's associated with what?
Totally makes sense.
If I cry, is mom going to pick me up and hold me?
Right.
If I want to be picked up and held, well, I'm going to cry. It's a very basic human thing that we do, and all animals do to a certain extent. We figure out what's associated with what. Okay, then those patterns. The patterns are what gets stored in our long-term memory. Okay, and that's very important for the next concept we'll talk about, mental simulation. But as we're going throughout our day, our brains are recognizing, they're taking in all this information from the world around us, and we're trying to figure out what is associated with what. And if I want a certain result, what do I need to do to get that?
Absolutely.
And so recognizing that pattern matching is a fundamental human thing, exposing yourself to a lot of input is actually one of the best way to figure out what those patterns look like.
Interesting.
Okay, so the more things that you have experienced, the more things that you've seen associated.
Right.
This is the other reason why experienced people tend to make better decisions than inexperienced people. They've seen more things, they've had more inputs, they've had more patterns.
So they can draw more parallels.
Exactly, and they can simulate, which is what we're going to talk about next. They can figure out what's going to work better because they have a larger database of experience to work from.
Makes sense.
So pattern matching is extremely important. It's one of the foundational capabilities of our mind and how it works. And so the more inputs that you have, the more outputs that you can have too, because you have a larger database of things to draw from.
Cool.
That's pattern matching.